All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to dive straight into the hard facts about one of the most fascinating and honestly, most consistently misunderstood reptiles in the entire pet hobby, the Sulcata tortoise. We're going to strip away the myths, look at the cold, hard data from the veterinary literature, and show you exactly what it takes to care for one of these magnificent creatures.
So I want to start by asking you a question, and I want you to really think about this. What kind of pet starts off so incredibly cheap, like we're talking about $50, but ultimately demands a massive, and I mean massive amount of real estate, literally a quarter of an acre? If you guessed a farm animal, well, you're surprisingly close in terms of care, but no, we are actually talking about a reptile. Okay, let's dive into this. It is the ultimate cognitive dissonance that catches so many people completely off guard. You start with the pet store hatchling. It's barely 2 inches long, costs around $50, and easily fits right in the palm of your hand. Undeniably cute. But then comes the adult reality. That tiny hatchling is going to grow into a creature that is 24 to 36 inches long, weighs over 100 pounds, and is built like a literal boulder. Most new owners dramatically underestimate this reality. Why do they get so big? Well, the sulcata is actually the third largest tortoise species in the entire world. They originate from the hot, arid sub-Saharan African savanna. And in that kind of environment, being a giant armored tank is a distinct evolutionary advantage. You aren't just buying a turtle here. You are bringing a literal piece of African megafauna into your life. Section 1, housing a 100-pounder. Let's transition seamlessly into the first part of our escalating challenge, the staggering habitat requirements of this species. So the crucial point here is understanding the extreme contrast in housing as this animal ages. When they're a hatchling, a 4 by 8 foot indoor tank is perfectly acceptable. It keeps them safe, it keeps them warm. But as they grow, the rules change entirely. An adult sulcata absolutely must be housed outdoors in a minimum 1/4 acre pen. Let me be incredibly clear here based on our sources. No indoor enclosure is sufficient to house an adult sulcata. They are simply way too big and way too active. And when we say they're active, we really mean they are bulldozers. Heavy-duty modular pen panels are absolutely required to contain them. Why? Because a 100-pound tortoise has a ridiculous, almost unstoppable amount of pushing force. If they want to go through a standard wooden fence, they will go through a standard wooden fence. You're essentially trying to contain a slow-moving, highly determined bowling ball. But hey, it's not just about space, right? It's about replicating that African savanna. They require a precise temperature gradient. We're talking a basking surface temperature of a blistering 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The cool side needs to be 75 to 80 degrees, and the nighttime minimum should hover around 60 degrees, but never, ever drop below 50. This is absolutely crucial. If they can't reach that 100 to 110 degree basking surface, their digestion actually shuts down. They literally stop eating and become dangerously lethargic. You are basically managing a microclimate. Alongside temperature is humidity, which needs to be kept strictly between 30 and 50%. Because they're a desert animal, very low humidity is critical for adults. If you live in a highly humid environment and the air stays wet, these animals become highly prone to severe respiratory infections and debilitating shell problems. Again, they are desert natives. They absolutely need dry air. Section 2, Diet of a Desert Behemoth. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how much these giants consume on a daily basis. Let's break down their strictly herbivore diet. 85% of their diet must be dry grasses and hay, with the remaining 15% being leafy greens. For adults, you have to provide ad libitum access to hay. That means endless, unrestricted access. They need all that roughage just to keep their digestive tract functioning properly. So what exactly does that menu look like? Well, you're looking at Timothy hay, Bermuda grass hay, and orchard grass hay as the absolute foundation. Then you mix in safe greens, things like dandelion, endive, mustard greens, grape leaves, and spineless cactus pads. Make no mistake, keeping a 100-pound grazing herbivore fed is a constant, massive, and highly specific grocery run. You're practically buying food by the bale at this point. But basic food isn't quite enough. They need minerals to support that massive shell. Free choice calcium powder and cuttlebone must always be available in their enclosure. The really fascinating thing here is that sulcatas will instinctively consume calcium when they're deficient. So leaving a mineral supplement dish right there in their space allows them to self-regulate. It's for sure the safest and most natural way to ensure proper shell and bone development across their lifespan. Hydration is another crucial balancing act.
First, you need to provide a large, shallow soaking tub. Second, hatchlings should be soaked 2 to 3 times per week. Dehydration is a silent killer that leads to kidney damage and painful bladder stones over time. But there is a huge safety caveat here. The water absolutely must be shallow. Tortoises are incredibly top-heavy and, let's face it, pretty clumsy. If the water is too deep, they can easily flip over and drown. So it's a delicate balance of providing enough water for health without accidentally creating a hazard.
Section 3, the 80-year commitment. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this brings us to the final and perhaps most staggering reality of sulcata ownership: time.
The growth trajectory of these animals is just staggering. At year 0, you have that tiny 2-inch, $50 hatchling. By year 10, a male will already weigh 50 to 70 pounds. By year 20, you have an adult exceeding 100 pounds. And here is the kicker. Their expected full lifespan is 80 to 100 years. That cute, tiny shell inevitably turns into a century-long responsibility.
In fact, the care guides from Krawlo state this sobering reality quite bluntly. A Sulcata tortoise, quote, will likely outlive its owner. Really think about what that means. You aren't just getting a pet for yourself. You are literally signing up for a generational pet. You're acquiring an animal that you will probably have to leave to your children or grandchildren in your will.
Which brings us to the ultimate challenge. We've looked at the quarter-acre habitat, the bulldozer-like strength, the endless bales of hay, and a lifespan that stretches across a century. Are you truly ready for an 80-year commitment to a 100-pound giant? I want you to seriously weigh all these concrete facts against that initial, super tempting $50 price tag you see at the pet store.
If you've absorbed all of this, and you are still genuinely interested, prepared, and excited to welcome a Sulcata into your life, then your next step is research. We've really only scratched the surface today. Head over and search the Krawlo blog for the ultimate Sulcata care hub. They have 45 comprehensive, science-based guides covering everything from building the perfect outdoor pen to specific feeding schedules. Do your homework before bringing the giant home. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. The final question you really have to ask yourself is, are you ready to write a tortoise into your will?